Hey guys, my name's Trevor.
I'm Trevor also.
And now I'm Vincent.
Oh,
and
shit.
We're the Anthony and Todd Show. Today we're going to be taking a look at Busdriver's latest album, Electricity is on Our Side.
Is he electro?
I hate you, Spider-Man. Busdriver is an indie art rapper from LA.
I view him as one of the founding fathers.
I believe he is as well.
Him and Open Mark Eagle. And
Open Mark Eagle. Electricity is on Our Side is his 11th solo album. His first one coming out in 1999. He's been around for quite a while.
I'm most aware of him through his 2015 release Perfect Hair, which I thought was a very solid compilation of art rap tracks with such great features from Danny Brown, A$AP Rock, Open Mike Eagle, Verbs. I thought the collection of tracks that he put together was just so catchy. Showcases his unique style, his unique charisma in such a strange way. That I think it just worked. I think the production on it was solid. I think his performance on it was great, and it just showcased them really well. This new project, Electricity on Our Side, which was teased by 2 tracks in January and February, one being called Gush and one the Imperfect Cinema, which neither of them show on this album, but I was interested because I think they showed a different, more jazzier side of Busdriver, more sampler heavy
100%.
style of Busdriver. And I was intrigued. I really enjoyed the track Imperfect Cinema. But when getting into this, I just don't like this. This album's an hour and 25 minutes. It's 23 tracks. And this is
a long haul.
It feels like an epic that I do not need to go on. Like, it feels like a mountain I should not have to climb. I feel like a lot of these tracks just have a lot of the same. Like, a lot of the same production, not in the sense of they all sound like the same track, but they have all the same quirks or same elements to them, or even, like, they either fall into a more traditional Busdriver stance where it seems like a more distorted, more sample-heavy version of Busdriver that we get, but the flows seem normal, or we get a more jazz-heavy style Busdriver, which seems very repetitive because some of the times he uses this very syncopated rhyme scheme, which is in tune with like an instrument of some type, whether it is the drums or it is a saxophone or a trumpet.
It works well with the jazz instrumental.
But it feels like we're getting that one style way too much on this record.
Yeah.
You start off with Electricity on the Other Side, and you get the skit. And I'm like, okay, or not a skit, but you get more like a soundscape going into this. Then you get the very syndicated jazz track where he's not really rapping, he's singing, and I'm cool with it for around like 2 verses. Then it just goes on. The soundscape continues. The skits continue. His verse continues until this track's like around 5 minutes, and it feels like I've been listening to this album an eternity already. This album never really gets a chance to like get out of the gate. Then you get into I'm From a Different Time, which sounds like a more traditional Busdriver track. I love his flow. I love his charisma. I love all the unique things that make Busdriver, just being a complete weirdo. But it just doesn't seem the same. Like, I think he's too lo-fi of production over this. I think it just does not suit him.
Yeah.
This is not... And even when he's over the jazzier style, I think it works on the track Right Before the Miracle, which was one of the singles to this album. I think it works, but it's not something I really want to hear from him. Which is sad, and it's not because it like was a different expectation than what I had. It's just like I think he works, but I think it can only go so far, and I think he's kind of already reached. I think Right Before the Miracle would have been better as a lone moment than part of like a jazz rap, art rap record.
Yeah.
I think this thing is just kind of all over the place. It does a lot of the same production quirks, a lot of the same staticky lo-fi productions used over and over again. The lyricism and his flow kind of get used. You get kind of sick of his character to the point where the year I became the motherfucking man, after that, I just ceased to care. There's moments I enjoy. I enjoy Grape Drank with Denmark Vesey, who I think Denmark Vesey does a decent job. I enjoy The Year I Became a Motherfucking Man, one of the more hype moments.
That's a funny track, I think.
I enjoy.
But it's also one of the longest ones.
I enjoyed
on here.
Me Versus Me, but it's also after like a dead zone. And Right Before the Miracle, I think is good, but it's also like after a point where I'm kind of already done with this record. I think it's just This record reminds me, if I had to compare it to anything, it would be something that's not even in the same genre. Last year we reviewed King Cruel's The Ooze. it gives me a lot of the impressions, not of post-punk like King Cruel, but a lot of the same structure. It seems like a very dense epic, but it's not anything I can get into. There's elements I like. There's elements I enjoy a Busdriver on here, same way I enjoyed King Cruel's moaniness, or some of the lyricism, or some of the narrative he was trying to portray, but I just get lost in everything he's giving me.
No, I agree.
There's a story here, there's a narrative here that I think is good, but I just am not able to access it because it's just too hard to access. And I'm not saying he needs to make pop music, but I'm saying this is just too long. This is just too all over the place. But at the same time, it uses a lot of the same structures over and over again, the same quirks over and over again, that it just gives you the sense that you're getting kind of annoyed with everything. And that's my biggest problem. I don't think I can say much more than that. I like elements of where he's going here. I just wish this was way more compact, like a very compact, like 40. Like,
yeah,
a very solid 40 minutes. I think that's all this album needed to be, and it would have been like on the level of something I feel like To a Pimp a Butterfly in a grand scaleness, because that's the grandness I get from this record, and I see big things that this record could have been instead of the mess that actually was. This is the culture too of art rap, but not as bad. There's just too much here.
On the contrary, I think that's probably... Definitely, I agree. That's my biggest gripe with this album, is that it's just way too long. This is even longer than Migos' project. It's longer than Post Malone's project. You know, it's just a long haul, and it doesn't have to be. And yeah, sometimes it just feels like I've been listening to this album for an eternity. But I genuinely enjoy the things that Busdriver is saying on this album. I enjoy a lot of these tracks. I think that a lot of what he has to say is both funny and insightful in the way that art rap typically is. I think that some of his features are brilliant. I love Denmark Vesey on here. I love Hemlock Ernst on here. The Velvet Underground, or not the Velvet Underground,
yeah,
the Underground Railroad. Well, I don't even know why I said the Velvet Underground. That would be a collab for the books, though, for sure. I just enjoy a lot of the things that Busdriver is saying on here, but this album reminds me of kind of a jazz album that just goes on for a long time, and jazz standards tend to go 7 or 8 minutes at the shortest, and like 15 minutes at the longest. Just as somebody that listens to jazz, you know, more than like the average person.
Also,
and
at the same time, jazz albums also have a lot of progression, a lot of spontaneity, and they don't really seem to delve into the same thing over and over again, whereas this album does.
No, I think it has a lot of the same things over and over again, but also I would argue that jazz does the same things. You know, jazz pianists can only have a certain number of improvisations before they run out. You know, improv and music in general is just scales and notes put together in certain ways, and once if you're playing a jazz standard and everybody's in, you know, B flat major with jazz, like, you know, typical jazz like ornamentations, and the jazz pianist is trying to improv over that, there's only so many things that he can do before he kind of runs out of things to do. I think Busdriver is like trying his best to make this as different as he can, but in a jazz album or a jazz rap album, like I said, there's only like so much that you can expect. If this album was cut in half, I definitely agree.
It would have been.
It would just be absolutely phenomenal. And even if you release the other half, if you stopped it at like track 12, track 13, you know, just quit it.
Yeah.
And that was a full album, and then maybe later on in the year or next year or something, you release the second half as under a different name, or if you called it Electricity 2 or something, would have been, I think, a solid project.
There's enough contact here to solidify one album, and I don't know why we needed to. I think the length was supposed to make up for lack of something, which confused me, because I think if you cut this down to its bare essentials, there's not a lot of it could do wrong, but because it's 2 times the necessary length, it just becomes bulky.
I mean,
unpleasant.
it is seriously a long album here, but I definitely think that Busdriver like has decent things to say and has like ideas that he's trying to share with us. In all honesty, just kind of thinking about other albums for this year, I would listen to Electricity Is on Our Side over a lot of the hip hop albums that we've reviewed over the course of the year. I would rather listen to Busdriver in his full entirety here over some of the other shorter projects that we've heard this year. Just overall, I think that Busdriver delivers a lot more ideas and kind of compact, big ideas in maybe a longer scope. And yeah, I think it's a huge long haul here, but I also enjoy the soundscape that he's creating. And I don't mind that it repeats as many times as it does. I definitely think it could use some cutting room floor time. I think it could use some trimming down a little bit. But in all honesty, I think I'm going to have to give this album my famous 6.75309.
I'm feeling I'm just so confused on where to place the album, because there's good ideas presented and there's a decent amount of them, but it's also half of this is just repetition. And I think in the grand scheme of things, I'm just going to give this a 6. There's things I enjoy, there's elements I enjoy, and I think I think I have positive things to say, but I also have a decent amount of negative things to say about it, especially with the length, especially with the repetition.
Yeah.
But it's not the worst thing I listen to. I call this the culture too of art rap, but it's still art rap, and art rap is relatively good, 90% of the time. And it's not trap music, so it's already not bare essentials. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. I think it just repeats itself too much, and now I'm repeating myself too much talking about this album. But if you want to hear us talk about more music, we host a weekly podcast called The Anthony Todd Show, where we just critique and meme music. This week we're talking about Little Pump and how he just kind of perfected trap, and it's a really unique story.
It'll warm your heart.
Warm your heartstrings. It's that good feel good story.
It comes at the end of the news broadcast.
Yeah, it's
after we talk about 6ix9ine's terrorist acts.
We also review many albums here on the channel, so if you want to hear us talk about Kanye West or maybe some other artists such as Open Mike Eagle or a plethora of other art rap albums we've touched, Quelly Chris, and a bunch of other people who are kind of in the art rap scene. If you're into that, we've touched their projects before. Those will be on our channel as well. But until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I've been Trevor.
And see ya, boys.
Bye, everybody.